In this video, we are waterproofing and sealing these concrete troughs to make them safe for my goldfish. I am going to be going all the things you have to do in preparation for this and important things to note so you don't make a mistake that could potentially kill your fish. So please stay tuned and watch every minute if you're planning on doing this yourself, because I'm going to go over some important details you have to note or else you could hurt your fish. In this video, we are using DRYLOK, which is actually a sealant for basements on my goldfish troughs to waterproof them and prevent leaching of anything in the concrete into the water. Now, I know this might seem out of the ordinary, but I did my research on it, and it's perfectly safe. Oh, my wife just arrived. Look who it is. Okay, you may be wondering, Luke, why are your shoes off and why are you in your socks? Well, I cleaned this thing so clean that, because you need it to be super clean. So I got all the dust and all the crap out of here, so it's like, it's just bare concrete, because that's how this stuff sticks the best. Man, this stuff is like the consistency of hot peanut butter. So like any paint job, I'm just gonna start with the corners and make my way around. So every edge and corner we're gonna start with. And oh boy, we're gonna need quite a lot of this stuff. Look at this goopy. Look at this goopy stuff. So if you are planning on doing this for one of your fish systems, I have a ton of important information that I'm going to dump on you right now as you watch me work. So important piece of information number one, DRYLOK Original, what I am using absolutely is fish safe, and they actually confirm that on their website. They state clear as day plainly that after it's cured, it's perfectly safe to use in bird baths and fish systems for waterproofing. Now, one extremely important thing you have to note is that DRYLOK Extreme, another DRYLOK product, is not fish safe, and they also make that very clear on their website. They say DRYLOK Extreme is not suitable for fish systems, and I believe that's because they have some algicides, mildicides inside the DRYLOK Extreme, because, you know, it is originally meant for basements, and basements can be moldy, can have those things, but you don't want those kind of chemicals potentially in your fish system. So do not use DRYLOK Extreme. Make sure you use DRYLOK Original, what I am using right here. Day 2 of painting the concrete troughs with some waterproofing paint, and look how beautiful that is, guys. Really, look how beautiful this one is. So the first coat has dried. The first coat is dried, but I do need to get in there with a brush and get these little dots and holes that I was not able to fully get with the roller. So I need to do that, and then I need to do the full second coat. Information dump part 2 on day 2 of this project. So you'll notice how I said that I needed to get into the trough and use a brush to get those little areas and crevices that I could not get with the roller. And the information I'm giving you now is that for the first coat, you really do want to use a brush. And in the subsequent troughs, I did do that. Because for that first coat, especially when you're working with a rough patch of concrete like I am, you want to use your bristles to stick into the deep holes if you really want to waterproof it as best as possible. So I'm basically having to go over my first coat in multiple different areas to get a true first coat with the brush that I'm still, again, going to have to go over. So if you want to just save yourself the headache, use a big fat brush for your first coat, and then in subsequent coats, you know, after you already got it really well established in there, then you can use a roller. Okay, we have finished the second coat on the first trough. And I must say, it's looking pretty white. Guess who's back to dump some more information on you? It's future Luke voicing over his work videos again. So another very important thing to note is that these troughs have to be clean. And I'm not talking just like, like clean. No, they gotta be clean. So I fully pressure washed these, got all the algae and junk off of them. And then even after I did that, I had to sweep this thing as much as I possibly could, and I made a bunch of piles of dust. And then I vacuumed up all those piles of dust, and then on top of that, I vacuumed all around the troughs to get any kind of dust or anything that's on the concrete out of there. You want the concrete to be as clean, dirt-free, dust-free, sludge, junk-free as possible, because anything that's on there, it's going to stick to the dust or it's going to stick to the dirt rather than actually sticking to the concrete itself. So if you want the best adherence possible, that concrete's got to be clean. Now, lucky for me, my concrete already was kind of jagged, which isn't really lucky, but if you have super smooth, super polished concrete, you may actually have to etch it and score it a little bit if you want to get better adherence. But I did not have to do that because mine was already pretty rough, so it could stick onto that rough surface pretty well. But still, no matter what it is, you gotta have it be nice and clean. Any dirt or anything in there is gonna stop adherence. Can this Luke guy shut up already? He's been talking the whole video. What else does he possibly have to say? A lot! I learned a lot in this video, and I want to relay all that information to you guys. So I know I talked to you previously about the importance of using a brush for your first coat to really get deep into those crevices. And now I want to say, because I forgot to say it earlier, is that on the question of do you need 2 coats? Yes, you absolutely need a minimum of 2 coats. They say that on the directions, and it's clear to me while I was doing that because after the first coat, no matter how well you lather it on there, there's going to be little holes that kind of pit, and as it absorbs into the concrete or as it kind of sets, there's little holes and little pits, and on your second go around you'll see all those holes and pits, and in areas you see more holes on, make sure you lather a good amount more on your second coat. And it's even possible that for certain areas they may even need a third coat go around. I generally just did 2 coats around, but there were a couple little areas where I saw some random pits that I did do a third coat going around there. And then another thing that stinks about this stuff is that it actually has a very sandy texture and it's thick. It's like, as I said before, it's like hot peanut butter. So it's not something that you can put in a paint sprayer. Now there might be some sprayer out there that's built for working stuff like this, but generally all this has to be brushed and rolled on. Now I did use a 3/4 nap, rough brush for brushing it on this for the second coat, but even for the first coat in doing that, I could not get into the crevices. And on the question of, well, can you just thin the sealant and then put it through a paint sprayer to make it faster? No, you cannot thin this paint. It is not like your normal interior home paint. It has to be applied as is. Okay, so I've gone over a lot of information with you guys about using this. So when is it actually fish safe? So this is another very important thing you have to know, is that even after you fully apply this for 2 coats and it's nice and dry to the touch, you cannot put water in here or get your fish in here for guess how long? 7 days. 7 full days it says 5 to 7 days is the cure time. And you have to allow for that full time because there are still volatile components and stuff that, might be releasing in forms of gas or even potentially the form of liquid into the water that you put into that system. So you really just have to let it sit, maybe get some fans going on there, help improve the circulation. But for a minimum of 1 full week, you cannot fill this thing, even if it's fully dry to the touch. Now, as we're wrapping up and we're getting our final coats of paint on here, I just want to go over why you would potentially want this. So, concrete, if it's very old and has been exposed to water for some time, will likely not affect the water quality that badly. However, just to be on the safe side, I decided that I did want to seal this to prevent any potential problem that, so I could just rule out that it was concrete affecting the water quality if there was a water quality problem. But for newer concrete, especially if it, has been just poured in the last year or so, there's definitely going to be a lot more components that could potentially leach from there, altering the pH of the water, making it higher. So if you have any kind of, concrete koi pond or mini concrete goldfish pond, you can use this stuff, and It's expensive-ish. It was $160 per 5-gallon pail, and I had to use around 6 of these 5-gallon pails on all my troughs to get 2 full coats and a third coat in some little areas, plus the tops of it all. So I had to use nearly $1,000 worth of this sealant for all my concrete troughs, which sounds like a lot, but when compared to some other epoxy-based sealants out there, it's not as much as those. Some of the epoxy sealants for this level of area would be like $5,000. Well, it'd be crazy. But yeah, just make sure you do your coats, everything's filled up, let it cure for the proper time, and you should be good to put fish in your concrete, aquarium or pond or whatever you have. I hope this video was helpful to you guys. It was a ton of work. There was just so much surface area for me to cover, but I hope that all this information could be of use for you, and good luck if you're doing this yourself. I am sweating like crazy, but guys, I have finally finished painting these troughs. It took so much longer than I thought it would. One, because of how thick this mixture was. When you have a thick mixture like this, it's really hard to get into the little crevices and stuff, because it just wants to, it's like spreading peanut butter. It's much easier to spread some milk than it is to spread some peanut butter. And two, the surface was just very rough and uneven, so very hard to get into the crevices and fill it all. But look at that, guys. Look at that. That's truly beautiful. That's truly beautiful. I think I'm gonna end the vlog here. That's what we got. Let me get a good thumbnail. I don't even know. But I gotta clean this place up. I've been doing all these little projects here and there, and just junk and stuff has been accumulating in here. So that's probably the next step, is just Operation Cleanup time.